Okay, we are doing this. First tutorial video. Woo! Let's go. What's up, everyone? I go by Saul Good. Hopefully, this is the first of many of these tutorials. I wanted to start out pretty basic. I know there's a lot of like intro to Ableton basic stuff out there, but I figure that since I plan on doing a pretty long series of these, it makes sense to just start with the basics. So I'm gonna hop right into it. When you open up Ableton for the first time, you are going to see basically what looks like this screen right here. You got a couple audio tracks, a couple MIDI tracks. So we're going to be mostly working in the arrangement view. This is all the arrangement view here. This is session view, which we're not going to touch on today. In the arrangement view, a couple things to note. This is your mixer section over here. This is your actual arrangement space. This is where all of your clips are going to go, all of your sounds essentially that we're creating music with. Over here in the left, you have the browser window. This is where all your samples are going to live, different effects, instruments, plugins, all that good stuff. We have the master channel down here. Yours isn't going to have anything on it for right now. That's fine. And let's see, we got these over here. We'll pop in and out the, well, ins and outs. The return tracks, which I actually don't have any in this project, but you'll have a couple of return tracks in here. We'll get into that in a later video, what those are. Delay times over here on the side. And this is your actual mixer itself, which right now I have mine set to -6. Yours is probably at 0. So a couple things in the setup. As far as how to change the color, the brightness, all that of your screen, you can go to preferences and go to, where is it, look, feel, and down here play around with like mid-light, mid-dark, dark, etc. You can play with the color hue, the intensity, and the brightness to basically figure out a shade or a shade of color or a shade of gray that works for you. Couple things. I like to personally set up my MIDI and audio tracks with some defaults, so I'm going to do that really quick. And I'll explain shortcuts and stuff that I'm using here when we get into that soon here, but for now, just bear with me. I personally like to have an operator, an EQ8, and a utility on my channel, and then once I do, you can always right-click it and click on Save as Default MIDI Track, and then that's how it will open up every time. Well, that's audio, default MIDI. It'll just open up that every time. Same with my audio tracks. I personally like to do the same thing. Grab an EQ8 and a utility, and you can just drag those right on the channels here. And then same thing, go to Save as Default Audio Track. All right, perfect. Now that we got that all set up, I'm actually gonna just make myself 2 of those instead. Some basic concepts to cover. Let's see. There are in Ableton, really in all DAWs that you find, there are 2 ways to sort of make sounds. There's audio samples and there is MIDI. Audio is just what you would think of any like recorded audio sample. It could be a drum hit or a horn section, or a recording of a vocal or guitar or anything. MIDI is basically just information that tells something in the software how to play. So for instance, operator is an instrument. Another one is, if you go to instruments here, you can grab let's see, how about instrument rack? You can find a lot of like kind of real world sounding instruments in here, like a mallet. Throw that in here and then you have, oh, it's not quite right. There we go. So that's using MIDI right there. I'm just playing notes. The computer processes those notes and plays it through this instrument right here. Now that instrument can be whatever you want. If you use different sample libraries like Contact, you can play guitar, play piano, play, synth basses, whatever you want really there. So let's see, going through my notes here. I know this video is going to be terrible, but hopefully it helps someone. We're going to go through, like I said, real basic stuff, and I want to keep most of these short and then break it up into, very digestible chunks. So as you go through and throw in your samples or play out your, MIDI notes, and record that stuff. And I'll get into that in this video for sure on how to record those MIDI notes and such. We're going to go through the basics of what processing is and how we use automation to basically process sounds over time in the song. So first off, you have your top panel right here, and I'm actually going to slide this screen down a little bit to kind of make room for my software recording stuff. Let's see here if I can. So you have a record button here. You can always just click on this and then play whatever out you want. If you want a metronome, you can turn on the metronome here. And you can turn that off as well. These are MIDI notes here. Another way that you can put those in is by simply double clicking or highlighting a section and right clicking and going to insert empty MIDI clip. You'll see here the shortcut for that is Shift Command M. So we're just gonna hit Shift Command M, and then you can just draw in whatever notes you want. So you can drag those on the edges here. And you can play with those however you want like that. So audio, just to give you some insight into what that looks like, is take this loop here, stick this in an audio track. You'll notice if I try to put it in here, it's going to ask you to do this. You don't want to stick it in a MIDI track. Audio samples have to go in audio tracks for the most part. We'll get into how you can turn that into MIDI later on. All right, so pretty simple. Threw it in my arrangement, and then I can play it. I guess this is as good a time as any to go through clip view versus channel view. So earlier you saw me throw some devices on these channels over here, these tracks, audio and MIDI tracks, and you can put any audio effect. If you go to this screen and you look through all of these, if you're in Ableton 10 or 9, it'll look a little different, but essentially they're all the same things: compressors, limiters, reverbs, utilities, all kinds of devices, distortion units, all the audio effects can go on audio tracks and MIDI tracks. EQ8 is an EQ, and that is an audio effect. Utility is an audio effect. Those go on the tracks themselves. So this track 2 here, channel 2, has these two audio effects on it. If I want to drag like a reverb onto there, I can do that. You can also drag that onto your MIDI channel as well and play your MIDI right through that. Okay, this whole thing here is the channel view or track view. Now, you can always access that by double clicking on one of them, and then once you click on any other track, it'll just show you what devices are on that track. Now, you can also double click on a clip, and now you'll get the clip view. And that is true for MIDI stuff as well, actually. Let's okay, so play at the same time. If you double click on that, now you have the MIDI clip view, but it's still clip view. So same thing. Once you double clicked once and this view down here is switched to clip view rather than track view, then you can just single click on any other track and it'll show you, or any other clip, and it'll show you that clip view. So I'm going to run through what you can do in here. We'll definitely get, again, more into details on all this stuff in future videos. This is just to sort of cover your basics, let you know where everything is, and sort of how to navigate your way around here if it's like your first or second time opening Ableton. So in your clip view, this is where we can affect warping controls, pitch controls, volume. We can draw envelopes and reverse it if we want things like that. So let me get into warping. Warping is the way that we make things that aren't normally in the right tempo or the BPM as what we want to be in the right tempo, or BPM as what we want. So unwarped, this track looks like this. And if I play the metronome on top of it, you'll see pretty quickly that it's completely out of time. So what do? We have to warp it. Now that it's warped, you can stretch it to where you want. Now, this is a little trick that I'll go over in here too. This is the way that I warp most things these days. If you hold shift while hovering over the outside of it, if you hover over it normally, you can just, not stretch out, but just choose how much of the clip you want showing. You can move that around, drag either one of these, and you see what happens there. Now, if you want to warp it, as long as warp mode is on, if you hold shift while you're clicking on the end of this clip, you can, drag this to wherever you want on here. If you hold shift and hold the command button at the same time while dragging, you'll actually get rid of those little grid lines so that you can move it to exactly wherever you want. If you don't hold command and just hold shift, you'll drag it right to the grid and it'll snap to the grid. Now, in warp mode, with warp mode on, you can choose between 6 different warp modes. I'm going to go through them. I guess I'll honestly save that for a different video. We're going to get into sampling. I have a whole video that's going to cover using samples and using sampler. And so I'll cover all the warp modes when we hit that. So, but just know that you can change that here. You can adjust the volume right here, up or down. And if you double click on any parameter anywhere, it'll just return it back to its default state. And here is the pitch. So if I have this and it's warped to the tempo, if I turn the pitch up or down, it's going to turn the pitch up while keeping the tempo the same. Now, if warp is not on, tempo and pitch are intrinsically linked. It's like if you have a vinyl record and you play it slower, it's going to go down in pitch. You play it faster, it's going to go up in pitch, since pitch is just a function of frequency and frequency over time. So if it's not warped and you turn the pitch up or down, the clip itself is going to get shorter or longer. So that is important to note. If we, I'll just take that off and put that back here. If you click on this tab right here, this will show you where your envelopes are. You can do some really cool things in some audio clip envelopes, such as transposing it over time. This is basically like automation. You're just automating inside the clip. We'll get into automating on the actual arrangement here soon. So if you grab something here and pull this up, so I mean already you can get some cool stuff just, essentially just repeating that. And you can automate some other things like gain as well. Gain you can only automate from 0 to 100%. So whatever you have the volume set over here, that is your 100%. So, but you can always make it get quieter or anything like that. Okay. In your, oh, by the way, if you want to just double it or half time it, you can click either of these. And let's see, I'm not really going to get into this stuff over here right now. If you want to warp pieces of the audio, you can come in here, double click any piece you want, and you can slide this around. Now, if you draw one there and draw one here and draw one there and slide this around, you see how it'll keep these in place. So you can really do whatever you want as far as warping this audio and making it sit wherever you need it to sit. Okay, in MIDI clips, you have this first tab here where you can highlight any of these. And by the way, you can always draw these in by just double clicking or hitting B for the draw tool and then drawing in, and you can draw in a bunch at a time, or right click, change the grid and draw them in like that. All right, I'm going to go back to narrow. That's how I generally like most of my grids. And I'm going to hit B again, turn off that pencil tool, draw tool. So in here, you can highlight some of these and kind of same thing as the audio, sort of like double them in time or half them in time, shorten them, make them longer. You can reverse, which in that case didn't do much, but you'll see what reverse looks like here, I guess. If I do those and click on reverse, it'll just reverse where they're sitting. Legato will make them appear like that. So a lot of times if I just want one single long note, I'll just do this, pull that out. I'm going to consolidate with Command J. We'll get into that later. A lot of times I'll just hit one note and then click on legato and it'll fill out the entire thing up until where there's another note. If I had another note right up here and I do Command A for both of them, hit legato, each one will just go to where the next one is. So legato is very helpful for a lot of things. You can always randomize them. I'll just do Command A and hit randomize. let's see, that's just randomizing the velocities, and you can cap the velocity range here. Invert things, you can click on that and it'll invert them. So lots of like, nice little hacks that you can use here. On the second tab, and by the way, you can always navigate through these by hitting option 1, 2, or 3. And in audio, it's also option 1 or 2. We'll switch between those. These shortcuts, I definitely recommend like writing these down as I go through them. If you need to pause the video or anything like that, the shortcuts will make your life much easier and definitely speed up how fast you get good at production. So on the second tab here, this is again where you have the envelope drawing. The only thing I really personally use for the MIDI clip envelopes are if you go to MIDI control, anything in this list, which is mostly pitch bend and channel pressure, maybe mod wheel, but really mostly pitch bend. And you can see that here. So if I turn on this one and turn this off, by the way, the mixer, you can turn off each channel here and there. You can also solo channels here. Solo is S, by the way. If you just hit S at any time, it'll do that. Okay, and if you hit A, by the way, A will toggle on and off the automation lanes. You can also click on that here to toggle on and off the automation lanes, which we'll get into in a sec. And you can always click on S as well as click on the S here, as well as just hitting S on your keyboard. Solo. Go back into the clip view here. All right, and to show you pitch bending in here. So you can do a lot with pitch bends there. It's the exact same as if I just played this out on my keyboard and just use the actual pitch wheel or pitch strip on my keyboard. Same thing. Over here, this is actually new in Ableton 11. This is note expression, and we're not going to get into that because I actually just downloaded 11 myself like a week ago, so I haven't fully explored the whole note expression thing yet. But I'm sure we'll get into it at some point in a later video. So let me check my notes here and see what else we got in this. Okay, automation in general, I did touch on that before. So automating in the clips, you go into the clip view, and again, each one, audio and MIDI, there's really only a couple things that I automate inside the clips themselves. This is MIDI control, like pitch bends, and that's because that's the only place you can do it. Here is inside that. So if I want to capture what it's like to pitch bend up a note, like I have to do that in this MIDI clip. And same with channel pressure or mod wheel stuff, which maybe we'll get into in another tutorial. And in the audio one, let's just get rid of all these, or actually just turn warp off, and then not, let's see, not leave in place those markers. So I'm gonna pull this down to where this to go here. And in here, the only thing that I really automate in here is anything in this clip section, because again, any of these like transposition or gain here, that's the only place that you can transpose an audio clip, by automating it, is in this clip view. So most of the automation that we'll be doing will be actually in the arrangement with these red lines that, again, you can pop on or off by clicking on this little thing right here, or by just hitting A on your keyboard. Quick little note about that. If you have, by any chance, hit the letter M by accident, or just toggled on or off this button up here in the right-hand top right corner, if that's on, your computer keyboard will actually just play MIDI notes. So if you do hit like A or S, it will not do the things that it normally does, like turn on or off automation or solo a track, as long as that is on. So you want to make sure that that's normally off until you want it on to play stuff if you don't have a MIDI keyboard and you just want to use your computer keyboard. So anyway, go back to here. What the majority of automating will be done in is in the arrangement, and you can essentially click on any parameter here, like the gain, here if I want to automate the gain here instead of inside the clip, or if I want to, let's see, what would some erosion or something like that. If I want to automate the amount of this erosion, I'll just click on amount, and then I can drag that line up. And now you can see how that circle here, that amount goes up here. If I want to grab a filter and do just like a basic like low pass filter sweep down, I can grab that here. You want to make sure you grab the parameter that you want, just click on it and the red line will pop up, and then you can drag it down here. And you can see how that frequency is opening up over time. So everything that we're going to be doing over the course of these next tutorials, we're making sounds by drawing in MIDI or playing out MIDI on our keyboards. And I'll get into how to record actual instruments too straight into your interface. And we're taking samples and we're warping samples and doing stuff with them to make them sound cool. The whole time we're going to be processing them with a lot of audio effects on those channels, and we're going to be automating a lot of those parameters so that cool stuff happens over time and your music can feel alive and professional. I think basically that's basically it for like this super intro thing. Let's see. We're currently at 21 minutes, and that's about as much time as I wanted to spend on this. So if you made it through that, hopefully that gives you your whereabouts when you hop into arrangement view, and you'll kind of know just the very basics as we get started on some of these sound design tutorials and some of the more complex stuff moving forward. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date as I continue to make more of these. I'm going to try and really fill this out over the next few weeks to months and make this a normal part of my weekly to-do list. So yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.